feel like communication is not something that I really needed to work on when I was starting with my interview prep journey. I feel like that was something I was fairly confident about. So I focused a lot on the content, and I would make it a point that I had the typical questions written out. Why MBA, why now, why the school, and all of that. And by the end of it, I feel like by the end of my fifth school, or how many other interviews I gave, I feel like if you woke me up in the middle of the night, also I could give you a very standard response to everything. So in terms of that, there was a template that I built. Because I'd gotten help for TUC really early on, I also had a fair bit of idea on what kind of questions to expect and how to prepare for them. So that was I think really helpful, because I did one round of interview prep with you. I think you and me had taken that first interview also. So that was really helpful, because it gave me the template that I was talking about, and it made that template for me. But I think the key also to any interview is to just really know. You don't have to know everything about the school, I will say that. But if you know the 5 big things that you take away from it could be anything. It could be like a course or some extracurricular activity or a club, or even just the community around it. So I think that really helps.
I mean, anyone who walks out of the interview room will feel good about it. I mean, okay, I have done well. That's how you feel. So you never know how you did it, because everyone feels good. Of course, everyone is not going to go in. So it is very in that way. It is like, okay, it was like a nice conversation. That's also they're asking about how my application, about everything that I've written in my application, and it seems like they just want to know more about it. I would have written a one-liner, and they wanted to know more about it. And the questions they ask, it would be like a normal conversation. I meet someone in the bus, and I'm just telling about myself, and they ask, oh, how did you do this? Oh, how did you? More like that kind of a conversation. About that they subtly, IIMB at least, this is what happened, they subtly ask you all aspects of MBA. That's how I felt in my interview. So like, for example, so I have done some leadership activities. So okay, they touched upon that. So okay, that aspect, okay, they have some information about, and then they asked something about about my company, like what it does and all that, and whether I know something about its financials and all that.
It was always just a normal conversation. What you're doing, why you're doing it, why MBA, how does it fit in your life? So that part was good, and I think I managed it well also. I was even in my mind when I was planning the whole MBA journey, I knew that if I get through the applications part, I knew the applications will be a little trickier. Interview part, generally I've already felt a little bit confident that I'll be able to get through it. And I think the mock interviews also helped a lot. So I did mock interview with Arun, and then individual alumni also for each school. Right. So that also helped a lot, and that I think helped me just nuance my final examples. We were already starting with a point because I had already spoken to Arun. I knew how to pitch my answers, which parts to focus on. With the alumni, it just happened. Then what are the unique points about that school? How do I make myself more relatable or more fit to the school? So I think we are already working at a very high level while preparing for the interviews.
Questions I think were pretty standard. Right? Like there were no fancy follow-ups or anything. So I actually had gone through this GMAT Club, and I saw that like, okay, this is what this AdCom is doing. This is what so I prepared for a little more things, but I knew what was coming actually. Right? They were pretty standard, as in like questions were like, what does your typical work week look like? And the other behavioral questions like, tell me about a time you did this, or you helped a poorly performing colleague. So these were all pretty standard questions, and it lasted for about like 20 minutes in a 30-minute interview, right? So that was it, and there was no more. I think the follow-ups were less. He was pretty to the point. Like if you answered something quick or something, like there was no follow-up on that.
So my interview experience was quite positive. I was interviewed by an alumni who had just graduated in 21. Okay. And for the interview, I flew down to Kolkata and went to his office.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So Yeah, so I thought it would be great. I had never been to Kolkata before and I got this opportunity. I thought it's better to do it in person. I had the option of doing it virtually as well.
Okay.
But I decided to go to Kolkata and meet him and speak to him. It's always better to meet someone in person.
Okay.
Yeah, and I had that experience. I mean, I used to be in IR. I knew how the interviews went or the discussions went when you were doing it in person and on or virtually.
True.
So I thought if I have to give my 100%, I need to be there and I meet him in person.
Excellent.
And the interview experience was quite nice. It was very conversational. So it wasn't a stress interview at all. The interviewer usually has a set of questions that the admission committee wants to ask the candidate. So there are certain set of questions that he asked me. They were more personality driven, more related to my work, what I have done, why I want to do an MBA, why this is cool. Something more situational questions. How did I deal with XYZ situation? And post that in LBS interviews, we also have a case study round, which is like a short case, a situation given to you, and then you have to present. So you'll get like 5 minutes for preparing and then 5 to 10 minutes for presentation. So I had that case interview at the end of, I think, 45 minutes. And then the entire interview lasted for 1.5 hours. The first hour went in just the normal interview. And then the next half an hour, I was just asking him about his experience at LBS. So we were having that conversation.
Initially, I was terrified. I mean, I was petrified. I thought it's going to be scary. And I was pretty scared. And I like to be prepared about things. Whenever I go into a test or an interview, I like to be prepared. And thankfully, before every interview, Crackverbal organized a set of mock interviews for me. That really helped. I did a few mock interviews with my wife. I took a lot of her time. She was least interested, but I made sure that she did that for me. So that helped. Practice really does help, and it's great to talk to people, say those things over and over again, and you become comfortable with those things. It can be, and then you can improvise also, because you expect a certain amount of questions. Those questions might not be there. When you are comfortable in the interview, you can improvise as well. You can mold your answers in a certain way. And how it actually turned out was very different, very conversational, like the conversation we're having today. It was much easier than I expected.